It seems there's a relationship between imagining some random evil in the world to which some societies are more susceptible than ours, and the belief in a possible supremacy of us, therefore, a sort of Father knows best in the sky, and that if you choose to worship him, his reality, his stories, his and his nuanced commandments like thou shalt not kill except idol worshippers, you have achieved this superiority. You will say, "'Tis the way, and their way is not the way." And when you do stuff in his name, that should make you pause, things that you constantly accuse the idol worshippers of doing, and you do the same thing. Your qualms are calmed by the command to surrender or obey because Father knows best. The old TV show, it seems totally benign, Robert Young, gentle, lovely, yes. There would have been a happy jingle, smiling faces. Each episode would present a problem and its solution. So if you could afford a TV back then and had nothing better or more exciting to do, you could make religion, chores, and dinner all the same thing until someone grew up, thought another thought, or tried to, or when Dad said it's time to go at 17 to Vietnam, you might have said, to do what? To kill? And why? Oh, they're idol worshippers. Okay. Do you have the evidence before I start killing, or should I just do it on trust, Dad? Challenging Father knowing best. Of course, because unless you have a hotline, as some of us apparently have had, to the source, to the man in the sky, you're always dealing with proxies or sheriffs or deputies of him, who is usually your father, or fathers who tell you what to do. I've encountered this just recently. Yesterday I was in the city in New York, and we're getting close to election time, and I'd had a dispute or a conversation with a friend anyway, online about Cameron said an extraordinary thing. She said, yes, I know it's terrible what's happening in Gaza. I know, I have friends, I know people, but don't you want cheaper groceries? She didn't stop. She went on to say, don't you want a democracy, proper democracy, and don't you want women to have control of their reproductive rights? So that was clever. I just used the first part of the argument because that's how she couched it. That our fight for reproductive rights, cheap groceries, and our democracy, all those three together cashade the killing of innocent people in the Gaza Strip and the West Bank, and now in Lebanon, elsewhere. And in my world, it doesn't. But what I felt going into the city, and people were excited about the election next week, and they've got stickers saying, I have voted already. And they're all friends of mine, so I know for whom they voted. And I felt myself that quite rationally that I am what I would call a socialist, a serious, a rational, natural socialist, and not a believer in monotheism, any of the big three and their various millions of sects. So the Democratic Party specifically does not represent my values at all. In fact, it represents less of my values than the Republican Party does. That'll come out in later things. But what I was struck by was the sort of Florida State, Miami rivalry in the 90s when I knew about it. Bobby Bowden and Steve Spurrier, I think, were the two opposing coaches. And it seemed to me that there's a celebration more in elections of us winning. In other words, my team rather than your team. And the effortful amount of work that has been done to tell me every time I raise questions about Joe Biden, Kamala Harris, Barack Obama, Bill Clinton, the long line of Democratic kings, if you like, recently, they will say, yes, but Trump. And they'll say this and that about Trump. And I'll go, no, absolutely. He's repugnant to me, completely repugnant. That's not the point. That's not the point at all in terms of what's going on in the world internationally and what's going on with my brothers and sisters in my own country, the country that I live in by choice, is much more significant to me, what's really going on in their lives. And I am not sure, I am sure that the reversal or the restriction on abortion and Roe versus Wade has had and will continue to have a terrible effect on especially poor women. And for that, I would be very committed. But it's done, dears. And one has to ask, why didn't Barack Obama codify it when he could? He tells you why. He says he'll upset a lot of people by doing that and it will cause all kinds of problems. Well, there you are. So the constitutionally created and abetted elitist, non-democratic U.S. Supreme Court has done what it would always threaten to do. And if the nominees and the confirmations had gone in a different direction, then we'd still have Roe versus Wade. But that's what we're at the mercy of, a system that we swear by. And we have been systemically defeated. So I am just, all I'm doing is literally operating on the notion, it's not a two-party system. That's not written in the Constitution. There's no law about that. There's no settled reality about that at all. It's a two-party system because we chose it to be a two-party system, because you don't have Miami and Florida State and Georgia. That's too confusing. You've got to have one or the other. It's a very Christian idea. There's one devil and there's one God. The binary, the opposition. And that's doesn't work for me. Not even close. It's not even, so I am as far from the Republican Party. I realized today, I didn't know this. I literally have been operating for the last, my voting life, which began in when did I become votable? It must have been Carter in that during that era, that administration. I have been voting faithfully Democrat, and now in my sort of individuated stage of my life, I'm going, well, the problem is that I have been constantly disappointed because because winning was never enough. It's not enough. I'm not happy that my team is in. My life involves encountering and working and dealing with people every day in real life. And I don't stop to ask, which party do you belong to? I don't have time. And if I did, I'd be very disappointed if that was my criterion for who I thought was a good human being. So Marc Lamont Hill, a man for whom I have huge respect. The way he speaks, his positions and his toughness and all the rest of it. And today he's on not Greenwald, one of those. And he starts talking about how, well, we know that all Trump voters are stupid, evil racists. And I'm going, well, there's nothing I can do with that, because I know at least 10 who aren't. 10 people that I'm very, very fond of. So I can't join your team.